It's the Cavaliers Basketball Club Podcast.
It's basketball time at the Cube.
It's over! It's over! The 52-year drought is over! The Cavaliers have won the NBA championship! Cleveland, this is for you!
Mitchell
Goes to the basket and buries Cornette.
Garland high steps over the timeline, stumps on a dime, hits the three! Darius Garland has been unreal here in the fourth quarter. Jack clock down to 5. Lillard blocked by Mobley. Oh, my! Take his home. Challenge Allen, and Allen said no.
get that big stuff out of here.
The shoot-around.
Welcome back to the show. Today we're bringing back friend of the pod, Jackson Flickinger, to talk about his observations on the year so far. The All-Star break has been underway. We've seen some fun performances from Evan Mobley in the Rising Stars matchup, and Donovan Mitchell put up a 40-burger in the actual game Sunday night, which is a bit like playing NBA 2K on the easy level using Space Jam's Monstars, if you get that reference. Did you get a chance to watch the game, Colin?
Adam, I wasn't able to catch the game, but I did see the highlights. I think the break is important, but it's tough to stay interested in a game where everyone is averaging about 25 points or more. All that being said, I'm excited to get into the interview with Jackson, where we talked a lot of good stuff. As a reminder, Jackson is a writer for Fear the Sword. You can also follow him on Twitter, so check out his stuff.
Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or follow us on the podcast player of your choice. We've been adding extra content to our YouTube channel, so please subscribe there, and please be sure to leave a comment. We'd love for you to engage with our podcast.
Kevin Love is officially gone. The 5-time All-Star and 15-year NBA veteran cleared waivers on Monday afternoon, then signed a contract to join the Miami Heat immediately after. He seems to be in a big hurry. Did the Cavs make a mistake by forcing him out of the rotation?
I think time will tell. I think the one thing that comes to mind, and something that I did see in an article that was immediately produced about this, is that the players really appreciated having Kevin on the team. And his veteran leadership, what he brought to the games, even just standing on the sideline, what he could point out to them in real time, had a lot of benefit. And now one of the only guys left on the team that's going to provide that kind of veteran leadership is Ricky. And that's about it. Now, obviously, Danny Green might do that. And the NBA is a small community where it seems like everybody really knows one another. So, I don't know. This is kind of the worry, that we couldn't value him in the way that he wanted, but really the way that we needed him to be valued was to kind of just take a seat and be a player's coach kind of in the interim, and probably be more heavily leaned on when the playoffs came around. And I think it's just, we talked about it last episode, I think it's just kind of sad that Kevin bailed, and the Cavs, they did what was best for him, and I think they were a classy organization in just kind of fulfilling his wishes. But now the real question will be, will his absence be a negative to the growth of this team, at least for this season? I did read an article almost immediately about how Evan said that the players are just going to really miss him. So it was Evan that was leading the charge on that. I know I've read in the past that Darius has benefited greatly from Kevin being on the team.
Yeah, I definitely think the players are going to miss him. They all understand it's a business. I think the Cavs did not do anything wrong by having a conversation with Kevin Love and letting him understand that he was out of the rotation. Kevin Love has only scored about, in all the games that he played this year, he only had double figures in about 13, 14, 15 games this season. He was not producing at a high level for this team because, as you and I have noted, when he is not putting up points, he's a liability out on the floor, because defensively he was even a step further back this year than he was last year. And I think that you're going to miss that chemistry in the sense of that knowledge. And I think that the Cavs really did try to take care of him. They tried to put him in a situation where he understood that he would be a mentor for these players. But ultimately, he was frustrated clearly in some degree that he wasn't even seeing the floor, because it's not like he went to the Phoenix Suns or the Memphis Grizzlies or the Boston Celtics. He went to a team in the Miami Heat who have a ton of injury problems and are a lower ranking seed than the Cavs. So he wasn't trying to go championship chasing. He was going to a place where he knew he would get more minutes because the Miami Heat have had more injury problems than the Cavs had this season. And it goes back to what you were noting, which is he made this choice. The Cavs have done a lot of good things by Love. They have taken care of him in the sense of when he's had outbursts in previous seasons, when he's had major injury problems. They didn't ship him off to some team like Sacramento when Sacramento was more of a dumpster fire. To me, I think the organization and the coaching staff really tried to do right by the rest of the rotation, and Love tried as best as he could, and he just couldn't do it. He let his ego and his own want and needs go above the rest of the team, and that's his own choice. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. That's just what he chose to do, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that he signed with Miami as soon as he could, and then the reports were that he got on a plane, went down there, and was immediately going to the practice facility. So, there's definitely some weird hype around this. Like, he's got something to prove, or I don't know. It's a very odd outcome, and the fact that it ended this way was just kind of a head-scratcher.
Yeah. But Kevin Love's whole existence with the Cavs has been at times a head scratcher.
Yeah. And it's not too shocking that at the end of the day he's the one who nuked it. That he's the one who ended it with his own behavior, or his, like you said, his ego, and not to mean ego in the sense of like something cutting or cruel, but just, you want to be more important to a team than you were here.
Yeah.
At least the way you want to be defined. So. Yeah.
Exactly.
And now we'll see if his absence truly is less or more for a team that I think it'll be more, because they just they're ready to give his minutes to these players that they've been bringing up for several seasons.
Yeah.
Jackson, we know that you regularly cover the Cleveland Charge, and with Love leaving, I'm wondering, should Isaiah Mobley be brought up to fill the space in the front court?
I think that Isaiah Mobley has progressed really well throughout the year. He's shown real progress. I would be hesitant to bring him up to have him fill actual minutes unless somebody else went down. I think he's he's 6'8", 6'9", so he doesn't have the same size as his brother does, and he's quick, but he doesn't have those same physical traits, so he needs to fill out a little more before he could really be depended on to give good NBA minutes at this point.
Okay. So his size seems to be a big problem at this point. This is like his biggest issue?
So he's most comfortable playing with his back to the basket, and at 6'9", 6'10", that's not really something you're going to be able to do in the NBA unless you are physically strong enough to overpower people. So in the G League, the biggest difference between the NBA and the G League, in my opinion, is the play of the front court. So you have a bunch of like kind of small ball PJ Tucker like guys who aren't PJ Tucker, and just they get Isaiah Mobley the ball on the block. It's just, he's just going up with it. They have to send doubles, stuff like that. Or you have guys that are 7 feet tall, but they can't move in space. And then Isaiah is able to just take them off the dribble. So it's like a lot of how he gets those points that he's getting aren't transferable really well right now, which is why he's working a lot on things that will transfer, like the 3-point shot, which is really working out well. It's just he still needs a little bit more time to progress and mature physically before I think you'd really feel comfortable with giving him NBA minutes. But I think if somebody goes down, I think he could give some minutes, but he's not like somebody who I'd be clamoring for.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of discussion, especially with a lot of other Cavs podcasters. They've been saying Diakite makes more sense to maybe sign him to an actual deal and get him off the two-way. I haven't watched Diakite as much. Have you? He was with the Charge for a little bit, right? So he's played some games. What have you seen out of him?
Yeah, he's played about 13 games, so he's spent more time with the Cavs than he has with the Charge.
Mm-hmm.
He's more NBA ready. He has a better NBA body, but I don't think he's not somebody I'd feel super comfortable giving a ton of minutes to. He's really turnover prone, and this comes up a lot in a G League. That's not really something you want from a backup big. He also fouls a decent amount. You saw that he started a few games, kind of spot started when earlier this year when Jared Allen went down. And he just fouls a lot, so he can give you spot minutes, but he's not somebody you really want to give over 15 minutes to in a game.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of him live and on TV, and I felt very similarly that clearly he's NBA ready, but I don't think I'd give him more than maybe 10 minutes a game. It depends on the matchups. It depends on what you really need him for, but I think one of the reasons why we had this question was because we had a video that we floated on YouTube about it, kind of just wondering that throughout this entire year, as a two-way player, why didn't they bring Isaiah in just to see how he'd mesh with the team early on? Was there anything that you had heard about why that didn't happen, or was it just they had too many people to choose from and it just didn't work out?
I think he really just needs the time to really progress in a NBA system. Okay. So one of the things that when you talk to him, one of the things that he really talks about is how, because he does, he gets to practice with the Cavs and he doesn't travel with them much, but he does go to all like the home games and stuff. And he talks about how he learns a lot being with them, just being around them, seeing it all up close and personal, and then he gets to see it. And then he gets to take it down to the G League and work on it. And that's just something that if he was with the Cavs, even if he was getting minutes, he wouldn't be getting real minutes, where he's able to actually feel like he's able to progress and work on things. Whereas in the G League, you see him sometimes he'll have a game where he's like, I'm just doing dribble handoffs all day. And he'll just, practice the fake Kevin Love pull away dribble handoff. He'll do that multiple times, and then it's something that he then can incorporate into his game, and it's just he wouldn't be getting those reps if he was in the NBA. So that's where it's like, yeah, I think maybe he could get minutes, but it's just he's better served, and the Cavs are better served in the long run with him being down there, just getting as much experience as possible.
Yeah, I love that you touched on that last point. Just to that he is best of both worlds right now. That he can go and watch what the Cavs are doing down the street, but then go and practice all of those things and try it out on his own, with the Charge. And that's something too that I wanted to touch base on as well. What are the benefits of the Charge being in Cleveland instead of Canton? I mean, that's probably huge as well, right?
Yeah, it's something that if you talk to the players, they all really, really talk about that. And I never covered the Charge when they were in Canton, so I don't really have anything to compare that with, and none of these players played in Canton. But
sure.
the Charge are able to practice at the Cavs facilities. I was talking to Sharif Cooper the other day, and he was talking about how he's able to go there, and he's able to talk to Donovan Mitchell. He's able to talk to the Cavs. He's able to observe them. So it's something that they really value. They get to practice on the Cleveland Clinic courts. They get to use the world-class, facilities and stuff. So it's something that they really think is a good thing. And we saw that some last year. Brandon Goodwin was getting some minutes last year, and then he would get minutes. Somebody would come back from injury. He would just, I felt out of the rotation. I'm just going to go get some minutes with the Charge and play 20 minutes just to stay fresh. And that's something that, you know, the Cavs aren't really using that this year because they don't have guys that fall into that category as much. But, you know, Dylan Windler was down with the Charge last game and was able to get a couple minutes. So, and that's just an opportunity that you wouldn't have in Canton. You know, it's harder to get guys to travel, you know, down 77 to, you know, play.
No.
So it just really works out well for everyone.
Yeah. I have not lived in Northeast Ohio for a long time, but I know that Canton is far enough that you say to where.
Right.
One last question I actually had was, it seems like when Isaiah Mobley got drafted, obviously there was a lot of speculation and there was a thought process of, oh, this is Evan's brother, so there's a big reason why you would go after him. Yeah. That being said, kind of from what you're laying out here with Isaiah, he really is getting the chance to improve or craft his game, and the hope would be that he would step into getting some meaningful minutes sometime next year. Is there a Cavs player that you can recall where they have done this, where they have actually used the G League as kind of a farm system for getting a guy to become an eventual rotation player in recent history? Like Lamar Stevens comes to mind, but I don't remember him doing much in the G League.
Yeah, Dean Wade was able to do that. So he went down with the Charge. He spent some time with the Charge, and then you know, now he's on a full-time contract. Lamar Stevens, he was a two-way player, but he was a two-way player during the 2021
during the COVID season.
Yeah,
right?
so they weren't. He didn't. They had like a G League bubble, I believe, and he didn't go to the G League bubble or anything like that. So he was like a two-way player in name only. Whereas Dean Wade was able to actually get minutes, and it's something that they've tried to do. They've tried to have. Basically, they try to have like one developmental player and one guy that they're comfortable with giving minutes to. And Isaiah Mobley is that guy right now. I do think he has the skills to be a really helpful big, like a backup big, because that's what this team needs. And this team doesn't really have a lot of avenues to improve around the margins. So they need to hit on some guys like this. It doesn't need to be Mobley, but they need to hit on one of these guys, one of these second-round picks, because it's just hard to keep this roster going, like depending on minimum contract guys and the mid-level exception.
Well, and you've got to salivate at the opportunity for the Mobley brothers to play together. I mean, clearly they've been playing together their whole life, so the idea that could come together on the court in the NBA, I mean, yes, please, as a Cav. And if it takes a couple seasons, fine. You know, at least Evan is ready to go. but yeah.
Yeah, and like the thing is, I feel like I've been a little too hard on Isaiah. Like, he really does have a lot of things that transfer really well to the NBA. He is a good defender. It's just if you picture Evan Mobley as like just a step slower and just a little bit, you know, shorter arms and a little less quick. It's the margins that really make a big difference in the NBA. So he just needs to, if he fills out, and he's somebody that's not going to get pushed around, because he's had trouble earlier this season. You know, when he's gone against some of those super small centers that are like 6'5" bowling balls. You know, he can get pushed around a little bit, and that's not something that you want. You know, if he's going to be a little smaller, he just can't get pushed around that way. So it's something that once he fills out, he's a good shooter. He's a better shooter than his brother, and he's comfortable. He's comfortable with the ball in his hands. He's comfortable dribbling. I think he may be a better passer than his brother too. It's just, you know, just shooting and passing. Right.
That's crazy.
I mean, and he's a really heady player. Like he really has a good feel for the game. He understands what needs to be done. Evan Mobley's just so physically gifted, and Isaiah Mobley is physically gifted, but he's not a freak.
Yeah. I don't want him to be Evan. You know, I don't mind that he's Evan light. You know, I kind of wonder, especially with the NBA and nobody really sticks to any one numbered position. You know, can he play a little bit at the three, the way that we used Markkanen? can we rotate him around a little bit depending on certain matchups? I don't really know if I need him to always play center, but you've watched a lot more game of so far of him than I have. So
yeah, that's something that I've thought about. I don't know if it'd be like in your head you think it maybe could work, but I feel like it'd be kind of like, when you tried to take Larry Nance Jr. and move him at like a 3 or a 5, you're like, this should work. But then like you see it and you're like, it doesn't really quite work, because Larry Nance Jr. is really good at a lot of things. But if he was like 2% better at everything, he'd be a superstar. But as it is, he's just a role player. So, and that's kind of how like I feel about, Isaiah in terms of like maybe trying to make him like a 3 or something like that. It's like he's not quite like, he has a good handle. He's somebody that could like, he gets a rebound and he can push it up himself. But he's not somebody who you'd want to just give it to on the wing and just say, facilitate, do stuff, move off ball. So that's where I think he's kind of more limited in that aspect.
So,
and that's kind of how I felt about like Larry Nance Jr.
So in that regard, he could move to the 4, and Evan could move to the 3. No, sorry. Anyway,
Yeah.
Colin, what were you going to say?
I think that, you're also hitting on, Adam and I have thought that Evan, if he improves his foot speed and his handle, Evan could definitely do some weird stuff off of playing the 3. I think he has that ability because he's so young. His ceiling is completely unmatched, I think, compared for any prospect that the Cavs have had, obviously, since LeBron, which, LeBron is in his own class. But I also, I think what's really interesting about having you on is I actually think that you give really honest assessments of these players, and you're also comparing them, because you're around the Cavs organization, you're comparing them from what the Cavs are asking these players to do. So that's why I always feel like, yes, you might be a little harsh on Isaiah, but I also think that you understand like the mentality of the organization, what JB and the coaching staff is going to ask Isaiah to do if he was to be called up. And I think that there is, right now we're seeing it might take a little bit of time, but we saw that is working out with them with Dean Wade. Dean Wade has had some health issues, but he's playing well enough that the team relies on him, so much so that they were, now he's gone, but they were sitting a Hall of Famer. So Isaiah has that ability, and I'm glad that they're able to take the time with him right now.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see what he looks like if he plays. I would imagine he plays Summer League this year. I think last year in Summer League, he kind of looked like a fish out of water. Like he was just like, I don't know what to do. I think I'm supposed to be shooting threes. I guess I'll just do that. And that's one of the things he talked about. He talked to me about it once. He was like, like Summer League, I didn't know how to play NBA basketball. Like I thought I knew what NBA basketball was. I watched NBA basketball, but it's just so much different with the speed of the game, the way the spacing works, so he's really learning, and he keeps developing really well. So it's like, I don't want to put a limit on like what he could do. It's just that like you're just going to have to be patient with it. And, you don't really get second round picks who come in and give meaningful minutes unless you're, Booby Gibson. Then you can, win a playoff series. But that's where you just kind of have to keep your expectations for like right now in check. But the thing that's most exciting, I think, is that he fits well with his brother, and not just like a, they're brothers type way, but because they actually have games that complement each other. Yeah.
They've been playing against each other their entire lives. So, yeah.
Right. So I'm really excited for the future. I'm just not as like, I would rather them keep like, if it really came down to it, like I'd rather them give Robin Lopez minutes, just because it's like it's a known it's something you kind of want to just keep Isaiah in a spot where he's comfortable, where he's learning. So
okay, cool. We all know how last season went coming out of the All-Star break. in your assessment, how do you see the rest of the season playing out, and how can the team avoid falling in the standings?
The way to avoid falling in the standings is by staying healthy. That's one of the things that really killed the Cavs last year. Jared Allen went down early after the break. Darius Garland was coming through the break and not in good health. Karis LeVert got hurt in the first practice. So it's a lot of their fall last year was based off of injuries, just accumulation of everything. And I think that kind of gets lost when it was like a lot of the narrative now is like, oh, they were a young team and they just couldn't handle the pressure. And it's like, I think they were a good team. They just couldn't stay healthy. And when you don't have Jared Allen, they were playing Moses Brown like significant minutes. And it's, going from Moses Brown go from Jared Allen to Moses Brown is not really good. And they were playing Brandon Goodwin a ton of minutes. They had some Point Jetty minutes. That's
Point Jetty.
Yeah, and that's why they fell down the standings. It wasn't like an experience.
Moses Brown is a free agent again. So
yeah,
grab him up.
I would be okay with them grabbing him up. There's just not a lot of good bigs out there. So
yeah,
he's not a good big, but he is a big.
He's a big.
Yeah,
he can fill a spot.
Right.
Obviously, the injuries, Karis. I also think too, Isaac Okoro he's not taking a leap, but he's taking a step in the right direction. So I think that a lot of these guys are clicking better, and it seems like Rubio is even clicking quicker than I even thought he would, coming off of such a devastating injury. And I'm curious, do you think that they might even move up in the standings? Do you think they'll finish fourth, or do you think that they should go even closer to second or third?
I think they should finish third. I don't think they really have a good chance at second. And I think finishing fourth would be a bit of a disappointment. The Sixers have a really tough schedule, and the Cavs have a really easy schedule. The Cavs schedule is kind of the first three games, I think, are something to really keep an eye on. They go Denver, the Hawks, and then Toronto on Sunday. And Toronto's given them some issues this season. Denver's one of the best teams in the West and fully rested. And then the Hawks are a team that just fired their coach. So you never know what kind of team you're going to get from them. So if they can get through that little stretch there, things do get a lot easier. And the way the NBA schedule works is they like to backload the schedule with a lot of marquee games, and the Sixers are a marquee team, and their schedule is really backloaded. They will be going through their toughest part of the schedule coming up, and the Cavs are going through probably one of their easier parts of their schedule. So this is a team that's really set up to succeed and do well. Whether they can kind of remains an open question, with how are they going to respond to the Kevin Love thing? Can Danny Green get involved? Can they stay healthy? So there are questions there, but they really should finish third, and I'd be disappointed if they finished fourth or lower.
I was reading that apparently from the All-Star break on, we have like the 27th most difficult record or schedule left to play the game. So we really shouldn't have the difficulty be part of the reason why we have any issues, why we have to go into the play-in again or miss the playoffs by the end of the year. So we talked at length over our entire stretch of our podcast with how injured they've been over the last 2.5 years. That even before they got Allen, they were very injury-riddled the year before that, when they probably should have played better, not to the expectation of now, obviously, but and then once they got Allen, they kind of fell off a cliff last year after the All-Star break. So
right,
that's certainly something that you can't say either way if it's going to happen. You just have to keep your fingers crossed. I just know as a kid, I don't remember there being a team that was riddled with so many injuries all the time. And especially with it being a sport that isn't as physical as it used to be. I just kind of wondered about that, often. But
yeah, it's one of those things where every team, if one of their best players gets injured, they don't really have a lot of, they will fall down the standings. And the Cavs are built a little better than most in that they have 4 guys that they kind of can rely on. So it really hurts if one of the bigs get injured. Yes. But if one of Darius or Donovan gets injured, I think they can, hold their head above water. So it just, it's tough when you just hope that they stay healthy. And, fortunately they haven't had any like major injuries. It seems like Donovan Mitchell's on the other side of his groin injury that was really hindering him in January. We saw the last week of the regular season, he was really, back to playing 71-point game Donovan Mitchell. He's looking like that guy again, and not the guy that we saw, when they played New York and Miami, where he was just kind of settling for a bunch of outside shots and wasn't really, he didn't have that burst. Right. So, if they have him and they have the bigs and Darius Garland's playing some of the best basketball of his entire career, it's like, this is a really good team. Even though they have a lot of questions around the edges, this is a good team that has a really favorable part of their schedule. They don't have any games outside the Eastern time zone. Like they are in a prime position to move up the standings, and the Sixers are on the opposite side of that. They have a very tough schedule. So if everyone stays healthy, this is a team that can go on a run to end the season.
Yeah, do you see something that we've noted in just their play? Obviously, the injuries. Do you see anyone on the bench kind of stepping up more? I know I've seen you kind of talk about how well Jetty has played at times. And obviously, we mentioned Wade, and the team just plays better when Wade gets at least 10 to 15 minutes a game. Even 20 is probably ideal. Do you, speaking of around the edges, do you expect or hope a certain player performs better just to kind of solidify getting into that third spot?
Yeah, it's always going to be tough when you talk about the rotation with like the wing rotation. Like Isaac Okoro's playing really good. He's playing decisive, which I think is more important than if he's hitting outside shots. If he's like making quick decisions, I do hope to see at some point like a 2 for 7, 2 for 8 game, which means that he's taking shots even if he's not making them, because sometimes when he starts to not make them, that's where we see it in the beginning of the season, where they swing it to him and then he just kind of holds and freezes, and that's really not what you want. You just want to see him keep making decisions and quick moves. But you never know, like, is this run gonna end? So that's something that you kind of be worried about. And we've seen Karis LeVert is still trying to find his place with the team, so and then like Jetty Osman would be a lot. I think he's a really good fit with the team because he moves off ball better than any other wing that they have. He's a decent shooter, but he's not a great shooter, and the problem with Dean Wade is a good defender and a good shooter, but he doesn't shoot much, and he doesn't move a lot off ball. He doesn't shoot well enough to be like a Kevin Love, Channing Frye, where it's like, you can't leave him because he will make the shot. So that's where it's like, there's a lot of question marks there, and you just hope that some of them are playing well and that they're fitting in well. My hope would be, like, if Ricky Rubio is like the better version of Ricky Rubio that we've seen at times this year and we saw all of last year, that's a guy who can really just keep things moving when everyone isn't hitting their shots and when the wing rotation looks kind of wonky. He's somebody who can keep things going. I'd like to see him get more minutes with Mitchell and Garland. We've seen JB experiment with that some. They may have to go smaller now that they don't really have Kevin. Well, it's not that they don't really have Kevin Love. They actually don't have Kevin Love. So
no, he's not there, right. Jackson. Let it go. No. He's gone.
Yeah, so you're going to have to go smaller a lot more. If Dean Wade doesn't have it, that means we're going to go really small and maybe it could be a team that plays up tempo. So I'm kind of interested to see how that all shakes out, how those bench minutes look without that traditional, like, we're going to go with a traditional 4 and we're going to keep one of Mobley and Allen out there. So that's something that I would keep an eye on.
Cool.
The final seconds.
So, Adam, as we noted, Kevin Love is gone, and it was reported that his number will be retired. Do you think he is deserving of the honor from the Cavaliers?
If they want to retire every single player's number from the championship team, I'm fine with that. No. A lot of numbers in the rafters now. I think that Love and Kyrie, I think those two guys deserve to have their numbers retired in Cavs history, simply because those three guys are responsible the most for bringing a championship to Northeast Ohio. And Kevin Love came to Cleveland and assumed the third role in the Big Three, and we all know what that means. You know, it's the Chris Bosh role, and you're going to have to take a back seat when it comes to your offensive production. And I thought the Cavs did an interesting thing with Kevin over the years and really let him be the first half show, and then the second half they let Kyrie and LeBron take it over. Now, we know that Kevin, afterwards, after the championships, he's basically been a broken toy. You know, he's been something that you just can't get out on the court enough for there to be a positive outcome for having him on your team, especially when you're paying him the crazy amount of salary that we gave him over the last 5 years. So, you know, Kevin Love, for good or bad, and everything that we ever thought of him, and all the trade rumors that happened throughout the years, and the times when you thought, oh, I want him to be a Cav forever, and then other times, hey, what can we get for him? It was always back and forth. But just because he was a part of the championship, and because he was the type of caliber player that he was, and that he contributed to our success with that championship, I would say that, yeah, he deserves to have his number retired. I was a little surprised that they announced it the minute he left, but in some ways, I feel like this is the opposite of the LeBron breakup. This is, oh my God, you're leaving us? I thought you were happy. I thought everything was fine. Well, have a good life. I mean, we really care about you. We wish the best for you. You know, like, I think they're just setting the stage for Kevin to know that he'll always have a home here, and that even though it didn't end the way that the Cavs wanted, or maybe he wanted, they want that fairy tale ending when he's done. The Cavs currently hold the number 4 spot in the East, sitting 5 games behind Boston for the top spot, yet they've projected plus 3,000 to win it all. The Lakers are plus 4,000, and they're 13 in the West. Is this disrespectful or justified?
So I think this is Vegas being Vegas. They are definitely wanting to put more clout in LeBron. They'll always have a high number. They'll always have a lot of clout for LeBron. And I do think there's a little bit of a level of disrespect because of the fact that the Cavs are a really young team, and they did falter last year. Granted, it was because of injury, but at the same time, they were a team that looked like they should have been in the top 4 last year, top 5 last year, and they didn't get it done. And so that's really a lot of times how these projections work. It's based off of previous years and whatnot. And I just really hope that the Cavs prove all of these people wrong. I think that the Cavs do have a lot of fans in the NBA from the media as a whole. I know that Bill Simmons and other folks like JJ Redick on his pod, they've all been positive about the direction the Cavaliers are going, but I hope even on some level they prove them even more wrong, and how well the Cavs come out of the gate in the second half of the season, because I really want them to push for the number 1 seed, because I think this is a team that beat Boston early on in the season in some nail-biting wins, but still beat them. And they match up really well with a lot of these Eastern Conference teams. And they should feel like they should have the chance at the Eastern Conference Championship this year if they want to take that chance.
Thank you for listening to the Cavaliers Basketball Club podcast. Let's go Cavs!